I'm working on a book of poems right now called The Coal Tar Colors. And the same as with Black Swan and with Open Interval before it, my process is I write about 3/4 of the book, and I think in books, so I know the project that I'm working on, and I have a cover and a structure before I ever put poems into that. And my process is generally to write the book 3/4 of the way through and then throw everything away. 3/4 of the way, throw it all away. 3/4, throw it all away, until I get to a point where I think this is absurd and ridiculous, and produce the book that then gets published. But it's just, I guess it's kind of like flushing the pipes or something like that. I have to write all of these other poems before I can get to the poems that are the poem. It's in my head before it's ever on the page first, but it's in my head for a long time, because if I start to put things down with the pencil too early, then I'll lose it. So it's really weird and annoying. And then the things in my head, mostly they coalesce and start coming out of my arm and with the pencil when I'm in the shower, which is really annoying. So in my house at home, in my bathroom, there's poem notes all over the wall in pencil. Open Interval came about in part because my name is also the name of a type of star. And I thought that was really interesting. And I feel like words are, for me, they're portals, and they carry energy with them, and so I wanted to kind of really explore that. And so I started studying this type of star, and I'm an obsessive researcher when it comes to the poems. I think I'd rather research than write poems a lot of the time. That's much more fun to me to get into a library or get into, like, say in the case of Open Interval, I went to the Royal Astronomical Society and was in London and was looking at old star maps, or go to York and start looking at John Goodrick, the astronomer John Goodrick's papers, because he was somebody who did a lot of studying of Beta Lyrae, which is spelled just like Lyrae, those stars, and so things like that. But I read that kind of stuff for fun. It's fun for me to read physics or science things. I think that if you study things, it opens out into different, it opens out and affects different parts of the human experience like that. And so for me to study and to try and find where I can go with language is really fun. Also, I'm the nerd of the century, and so it's easier for me to be somewhere in a library doing that than trying to interact with people, which is much more difficult. As raised Pentecostal, which I think had a great influence on things. One of the things that Pentecostals believe in is glossolalia, which is that you can, speaking in tongues, you can speak a language that you don't understand that gives you a direct line to God. And like being in church and hearing people speak in tongues and the combination of all of those syllables together and like kind of being out of your own way, kind of immediately I grew up thinking, well, if I want to know what I mean, I write a poem to know what I mean. Again, like the space of like just talking to someone, I don't have enough space, because then I can't figure out if it's coming out of my mouth, well, what did that mean when I say it? It's not that I mean, and so then it makes me feel dumb and awkward and anxious, which is a real issue for me. And so I just really wanted to get at that. And my mother was somebody who, she went to a library sale. I've told this story a million times. And when I was a little girl, and she bought me all of Shakespeare's plays, the text and the album. And I had like one of those little turntables, one of those little box turntables that you could open up like a suitcase. And so I would sit in my room as a little girl and listen to Shakespeare's plays on album. And the music of that getting into me made me a really dorky, weird kid who nobody wanted to talk to. But also, like, that music also kind of makes you a poet too. And then we also had to read the Bible every day when we came home from school. And it was the King James version of the Bible. And so sitting there and listening to that on cassette you know, but then there was a lot of trauma and terror in my childhood as well that I was trying to escape from and that I was trying to process, and so that gave me that. And then there was the landscape of Florida, where the swamp is always actively trying to kill you. Like the swamp is, in a beautiful way. I don't say that in a bad way. I love Florida. I love that landscape. I miss the swamp. But I mean, I've got this poem I've got several poems that talk about the way in which the Florida landscape works, where you can like kind of walk outside one day and the ground opens up and swallows your house. And there are dinosaurs. I don't know if you've ever seen an alligator, but I always think that's left over from the Pleistocene. Like that is a dinosaur. So what is, okay, so there are these big creatures that can eat you, and there are flying bugs coming at you, and there is the swamp trying to swallow your house down, and it's a very dramatic landscape to come from. And so I feel really blessed to come from, even from the bad things of my childhood, because it made for this great mix to make poems.